Hello everyone. My name is Sabhya. I'm an airline pilot who fly A320 Airbus. So before becoming a pilot, the first step is to be medically fit. And to avoid all confusions and myths, we have Wing Commander Dr. Smita Rani on board, who is a DGCA approved Class 2 medical examiner and a retired officer of Indian Air Force. She has worked for several years at Indian Air Force Boarding Center, AFCME Delhi. She is also a pathologist and a certified counselor approved by Washington, USA. So thank you so much, ma'am, for coming.
Thank you so much, Sabya, for having me today.
Ma'am, can you please tell our viewers your role in aviation and as a Class 2 medical examiner?
Right. See, as we know that the Class 2 medical examination is the first step when a student decides to pursue aviation as his career. So my job is to conduct those Class 2 medicals for these aspiring pilots. I also do Class 2 medicals for cabin crew. My role is to assess whether these children are physically and mentally fit. And if there are any issues, it helps me detect that earlier so that it can be taken care of. And finally, the whole idea of a Class 2 medical examiner is to provide guidance at every step and to make the medicals as easy as possible for the student. So that is my role.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Ma'am, our viewers want to know why is medical fitness is critical before and during the DGCA ground classes?
Well, like I said, the Class 2 medicals is the first step in the aviation journey. So the DGCA mandates, it has norms that says that you have to be absolutely fit even before you decide to enroll yourself in ground classes or, go for flight training. This is really important because we need to put a fit person in the cockpit, you understand?
Right.
And this can be done only when we do the medical examination very early in this entire journey. And probably would be a better idea if it is done before he enrolls in ground classes. Because see, once he is enrolled in ground classes and he does take classes, and after some time he decides to do his medical, in case there is certain issues, medical conditions that are disqualifying, at that time he might have to, quit his entire dream of becoming a pilot. And during this time he would have wasted a lot of time and money and emotional energy for that matter. And to avoid all this, we always suggest that the Class 1 medicals should be done way before even stepping into the ground classes.
So ma'am, many people have confusion between the Class 2 and Class 1 medicals. So can you please help us in clearing our doubts?
Absolutely. The Class 2 medical, like I said, it is the initial medical. This is when you actually start your journey to becoming a pilot. And that is a requirement, to apply for your student pilot license and further to start flight training. Your Class 1 is a more professional sort of a standard, and that is done usually for commercial flying and commercial pilots when you need to get your CPL. And the difference also lies in the validity and the different types of tests that are done. For example, in the DGCA Class 1, it is very stringent. It has a lot more tests to evaluate the pilot's health, whether it is cardiovascular health, neurological health, mental health, etc. And it involves a lot more testing and specialized tests, which are not there in the Class 2 medicals. Right. Apart from that, class validity. The validity of Class 2 is for 2 years. That is if the student is below 40 years, and 1 year if it is over 40. But the validity for your Class 1 is a year. So every year you do have to go for your Class 1. So that is the difference between Class 2 and Class 1.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, is it necessary to clear medicals before the DGCA ground classes?
Well, I think it is much better to clear the Class 2 before your ground classes. Like I had mentioned, that if you do delay your medicals and later on, after considerable period of your ground classes is over and you have spent all that money, if you have a disqualifying condition and if you are permanently unfit, you have to give up that journey. And that probably is emotionally quite damaging, apart from being financially damaging. And therefore, I think it is absolutely pertinent to be clear that you are medically fit before your ground classes.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, what is the ideal age to start aviation medicals?
Well, the ideal age is between 16 to 18. By that time, your entire body parameters, your blood tests, etc., have stabilized, and it is easier to get it done between 16 and 18. There is no age limit after that, so you can keep getting it done till whenever you want. So the other day I had a pilot who was doing his class 2 for the first time, and he was almost 59. So age actually is 16 to carry on whenever.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, what are the common unnecessary fears and myths students should ignore?
Well, there are a lot of myths in this entire aviation industry regarding medicals, and because of those myths, probably there are these fears amongst all these students. And some of them are key. If you have any sort of a medical condition, you are disqualified. That is not true.
Okay.
You have certain medical conditions which are treatable, and if they are treated, you can definitely be made fit. So that is
Right.
one fear that they have कि कुछ भी medical problem हो तो मैं unfit हो जाऊँगा. Secondly, a very common question that comes to me is, I'm wearing specs, I can never become a pilot. Well, that is also untrue. So that is a fear that is there with the students.
Okay.
Thirdly, I feel that, they think that you should start your pilot journey really early. But the ideal age is, like I said, 16 to 18, and that is one fear of missing out, They
Right.
think that you have to start really early. And then I think another fear is not being a maths genius. People usually think that I have to be a maths genius to know the ground subjects, to study them. Though technical, I think all these subjects that are taught are easily managed by studies and
Right.
instructors helping you out, etc. So that is another fear that one needs to let go. And of course, there are a lot of fears of other medical related issues, whether it is a previous fracture or a surgery, etc., where people think that they could be medically unfit, and therefore the fears come from that. So the fears usually come from misinformation. And I would like to reiterate that the best person to guide you would be a class 2 medical examiner. So, and they would help you, elevate your fears and help you in this journey.
Right. Ma'am, as you mentioned about specs, so are spectacles allowed while flying?
Well, yes. Actually, for the class 2 medical examination, you have to have a 6x6 vision or a 6x9 vision in one eye and 6x6 in the other. Now, what that means is that when you are at the ophthalmologist and when you have to read that chart, you should be able to read the last line. That is with your specs and not without or without your specs. So spectacles are definitely allowed, provided the rest of the parameters in the eye exam are also normal. For example, your color perception should be absolutely normal. Your depth vision, your night vision, your near vision, they also have to be normal. So with specs, yes, with contact lenses, you can definitely become a pilot. The only rider here is that you have to carry an extra pair of spectacles every time that you fly. So yeah.
Mama, as you mentioned about specs, so are spectacles allowed while flying?
Well, the answer actually is yes. A lot of students do worry that spectacles hai and I'll not be able to become a pilot, but that is not true. With spectacles, your vision should be 6x6 in both eyes, or 6x6 in one eye and 6x9 in one eye. Now, what does that mean? It means that when you go to the ophthalmologist's office and you have that chart, vision chart, you should be able to read the last line or the line above it with your spectacles. So, definitely spectacles are allowed, and pilots can fly with their spectacles or contact lenses. But the Next rider to that is that apart from spectacles, your your near vision, your color vision, your depth perception, as well as night vision should also be absolutely fine. So when everything is okay, yes, you can definitely fly with your spectacles.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, our viewers want to know what are the weight, BP, and thyroid criterias?
All right, one great myth is that I'm very thin or I'm overweight and I can't become a pilot. But you know, when we do the class 2 medicals, we do lay a lot of stress on the BMI, which the normal BMI is between 18 and 25. But if you're on either side of the spectrum, it doesn't mean that it disqualifies you from being a pilot. As class 2 medical examiners, we do a lot of extra tests to figure out why your weight is very less or why you have put on so much of extra weight. And if all your tests are normal, then you can fly. But then again, it depends on the airline. If you are flying, if you are really obese and your BMI is over 35, they may ground you and they may say that you need to come back to us when you have lost a lot of weight. So yes, if you have no other underlying conditions that is causing your weight loss or your weight gain, you can definitely be made fit with recommendations for diet and exercise.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, after talking about health and medical fitness, we want to know the height requirements for pilots.
That is again another interesting question, you know, because I keep getting asked that a lot, कि मेरी height बहुत कम है, can I become a pilot, and things like that. But you know, interestingly, DGCA has not, does not have any laid down criteria for height. Though specific airlines may have, you know, the height criteria. For a class 2 medical examination, height criteria is not there. So anybody can undergo a class 2 medical examination. Now, for example, certain airlines like Lufthansa, etc., they have a height criteria of that their pilots should be more than 5'5", or certain airlines in the UK, they say that it has to be between 5'2" and 6'3". But as far as DGCA is concerned, height criteria is not there. But while doing the medical examination, if we do feel that someone is really short, then what we can do is ask for something which is called a cockpit trial or cockpit tests. Over here, the child or the student is put in a simulator, and then the reaches are seen, whether you can reach the controls, whether your feet can reach the rudder pedals, etc. And if your cockpit trials are cleared, then it is documented, and this document states that you have cleared your cockpit trial, then there should not be a problem later. Moreover, the trainer aircrafts as well as commercial aircrafts, they have adjustable seats nowadays. So that is to accommodate the various ranges of height. So I don't think height should be such a scary issue per se.
Ma'am, can you make us understand what is DNS and its impact on medical fitness?
All right. So DNS is a deviated nasal septum, which means that this septum that you have in the middle of your nose, that is little distorted or moved or shifted to one side. Now, if this DNS is very mild and asymptomatic and does not cause any issues, for example, it does not cause any breathing issues, it does not cause any problems while you're draining of your sinuses, it doesn't cause any issues while you're sleeping, doesn't cause any sleep disturbances, etc., then it is absolutely cleared, mild cases. Now, for severe DNSs, what happens is that if there are issues with breathing and your oxygenation is not happening because of your severe DNS, your sinus is not draining properly and you are having sleep issues, then probably it is a disqualifying condition. Also, there is a lot of surgeries for it. So, if that surgery called septoplasty can correct your DNS, there is a cool-off period after the surgery for about 3 to 6 months, and if there are no complications to that surgery and if your air entry, everything is all fine, then you can be again cleared.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for clearing this doubt. Ma'am, we want to know that if a student has a medical history or a bone fracture, so is it acceptable to fly?
Well, see, DGCA does not just make everybody unfit just for any other reason. There are a lot of conditions that are just temporary in nature. And for example, like you said, a fracture. These fractures can heal. And once this fracture has healed and you have this waiting period post surgery, which is about 6 months or so, 3 to 6 months, and if there are no residual problems, for example, if there is no nerve damage and the range of motion is absolutely fine, then with the specialist's opinion, orthopedic's opinion, if he gets a fitness certificate, then he's definitely fit to fly.
Ma'am, many students have squint related queries and DGCA concerns regarding that. So can you
Right.
please help us with that?
Yes. Well, squint again depends on the degree of squint, right? So if it is very mild squint and does not cause any problems in your vision, so that is usually made fit, right? Provided, like I said, the rest of your eye examination is normal, provided your field of vision is normal, your color perception is normal, the night vision, near vision, distant vision, everything is normal. So mild squint, of course, is allowed. But then again, you have to get a fitness certificate from the ophthalmologist giving you fitness to fly as a pilot. But if there is severe squint, which causes diplopia, which is double vision, and that causes problems with your depth perception, etc., then definitely it is a disqualifying condition, and you cannot get fitness based on that.
And ma'am, what are the eyesight class 1 medical requirements?
Well, I had mentioned earlier for class, whether it is 1 or 2, your with spectacles, it has to be 6x6 or 6x6 in one eye and 6x9 in the other. Well, there is certain literature that says that for long-sightedness and short-sightedness, they do have a power that is given to them. For example, for short-sightedness could be -6, and for long-sightedness it could be plus 5 diopters, with astigmatism about +2 diopters, etc. But then again, that depends on the airline that you are flying and the airline regulation, not DGCA per se.
Ma'am, is LASIK acceptable and what are the precautions for it?
Well, LASIK is an eye surgery that is done, to correct your short-sightedness or astigmatism. And yes, DGCA does allow LASIK surgery, and you have to be fit there's a waiting period about 3 to 6 months, and after which, there has to be no complication of the LASIK surgery, which would include, no dry eye or no glare, and the vision should be stable. So under these conditions, if a fitness certificate is got from the ophthalmologist, then definitely the person can be cleared.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Ma'am, what is the color vision requirement?
Color vision is the most probably important thing for a pilot. That's because all these different colors are required for aviation navigation signals, etc. And therefore the color vision has to be perfect. So the color vision is normally seen through these color plates called the Ishihara's chart, and you have to be able to read all the numbers in that. And color vision has to be absolutely perfect. Only then can you be given fitness. If there are certain doubts about about the color vision through the chart, then specialized tests such as the Martin London tests, etc., are done to see if you have any color vision problems. But if you are colorblind, then definitely that is a condition where you cannot become a pilot.
Ma'am, after talking about eyesight and vision, ma'am, what is the impact of sleep, diet, alcohol and smoking?
I'm so glad you asked, because the pillar of all good health depends on a good lifestyle. So when you talk about your sleep, that is probably the most important thing in the lifestyle modifications that you have to make. That is because when you do sleep for 7 to 8 hours, your brain resets, it helps you to focus, it helps you to make quick decisions, and which are all very critical during flying. And if your sleep is compromised, somewhere or the other, all these things get compromised, and thereby compromising aircraft safety. Diet and exercise, yes, very important, because your entire life you will, spend, on your aircraft, and to be fit is one of the goals. So diet, balanced diet, and exercise would ensure that your BMI is within the normal limit, that you have good endurance, that your heart is working perfectly, your lungs are working perfectly. So yes, diet and exercise are very important. The other thing is important is smoking, of course, because nicotine per se kind of reduces your lung capacity. And we all know that lung capacity is very important while flying in aviation, because up there there is oxygen as it is less, and if your lungs are compromised, it could lead to a lot of problems. Alcohol, it kind of disrupts your judgment and coordination, so that could also be, detrimental to a pilot's health. And last but not the least, I would like to really mention about mental health, because flying involves a lot of stressful conditions, and your mental health really needs to be taken care of during this entire process.
So, ma'am, can you recommend some daily habits for the students?
Well, the daily habits usually come with your lifestyle itself. So, like I said, 7 to 8 hours of sleep, a good balanced diet, which would, not include too many sugary drinks and junk food, etc. Because you need to have a stable, a glucose level, and to avoid sugar crashes. Your diet should be rich in protein, and, of course, whole carbohydrates, etc. And apart from that, like I said, mental health is really important. Practicing stress management, practicing mindfulness, and of course, if you do have any issues, for example, you're feeling stressed out or you're feeling anxious, then it is imperative to seek help early in the process, so that it doesn't escalate and become something bigger later on.
And ma'am, how important mental health is for pilots?
Oh, mental health is probably as important as physical health, because, like I said, aviation is a high stress environment, and flying just doesn't involve, just flying the aircraft. You have to make quick decisions, you have to make right decisions, and you have to make them, under pressured conditions. And if you are not mentally well, or if you're stressed out, and if you are not feeling very great about it, this can affect your decision making capacities. It could affect the way you interact, your team interactions between your first officer or ATC. The situational awareness within the cockpit itself could be altered. So all this actually would compromise the aircraft safety, not only the safety of the individual, but also the 100-odd passengers behind him. So I think mental health is as important as physical health, and I feel that pilots should be trained to look after their mental health much more, to be able to practice mindfulness, to have these stress relieving sessions, to ensure that their lifestyle is such that it kind of helps them to have these happy hormones and
Right.
so that way I think mental health should be really taken care of.
Ma'am, after talking about lifestyle, ma'am, how to align medicals with DGCA ground preparation? Can you please help us with that?
Yes. See, initially, like I said, the class 2 medicals have to be done before your ground classes. But most of the aviation schools do help you with scheduling the class 2 medicals, but they help you with your EGCA creation, uploading of your documents, etc. So I would recommend that the class 2 should be done absolutely first and in most initial thing when you start even your ground classes, and getting advice, the right advice from the right person is very important. So
Right.
like I said, there are a lot of myths and misinformations that go around about medicals. So the right person to be guiding you regarding this would be a class 2 medical examiner, and therefore I feel that one should get in touch with the medical examiner very early in this entire aviation career.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Ma'am, what is the frequency of medical reviews during training?
Okay. See, like I had said, the class 2 medicals, initially that medical is done and the fitness is given for 2 years. So after that, within this 2 years period, you do your ground classes and apply for your flying training. You have to apply for your class 1 before your class 2 validity expires. Class 2, if your validity does expire, you cannot undergo a class 1 examination then, and that is when you have to come for reinitials of your class 2. And class 1 examinations can be done, it's done usually at a boarding center, the initial class 1, and that it can be timed anywhere between 1 month after your class 2 to that entire period before the class 2 validity runs out. And then of course yearly, every year your class 1 renewals keep taking place, and that can be done by any DGCA paneled class 1 medical examiner.
Ma'am, if a student has been declared temporary medically unfit, so what are the steps for it, ma'am?
All right. See, when we do get students, unfitness is like 2 criteria. One is a temporary unfit, where there are certain medical conditions that are correctable, and if you correct them, you can become medically fit. So that is what we call as temporary unfit. Now, this temporary unfit period can be anywhere as short as a week to maybe 6 months or so. So that again depends on your condition. So if it is a very minor condition like an infection or say a fever or something, you are given medications, etc., and you recover and then you are given your fitness. If it involves say having a surgery or certain other procedures that need to be done, that again has their own waiting period of between 3 to 6 months, and after which, if there is the opinion of fitness by these concerned specialist, that person is made fit. Now there are many conditions that are absolutely permanently unfit, which means that if you have any of these conditions, they are absolutely unfit and you cannot become a pilot. DGCA per se doesn't have a list, and everything is based case to case. But there are a lot of conditions which can give you a permanently unfit condition. In that case, you have to decide on another career other than a pilot.
Ma'am, what are some of permanent unfit conditions?
Well, there are certain unfit conditions where you cannot become a pilot, and I can just name a few of them. The most common being, if you are color blind and your color perception is not there, then that is a condition for unfitness. Then we come to conditions that cannot be corrected either surgically or medically. For example, if you have a structural defect in your heart, if you have very high blood pressure which is not being controlled by medication, that is also one of the conditions. If you have certain neurological problems, for example, if you have Parkinson's disease or if you are paralyzed, those are the conditions where you cannot be made fit. Apart from that, there are certain endocrine problems. For example, if you are insulin dependent diabetic, which requires injections for insulin, etc., that also is a condition where you cannot become a pilot. Apart from that, severe mental health conditions, if you have schizophrenia and severe mental health issues, that is a condition for permanent rejection. And again, like I said, again, it depends case to case basis. For example, substance abuse, and if you are dependent on that, that is again a criteria for rejection. So again, it depends on case to case. Thorough evaluation is done in every case before declaring that a candidate or a student is permanently unfit. And only when all the required documentation, all the various tests are done, that is when the permanently unfit condition is declared.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, why professional medical guidance matters?
Well, like I said, there's a lot of misinformation that is going around, and that leads to a lot of fears, and there are a lot of myths because of which. And therefore, I feel that, medical guidance from a DGCA class 2 medical examiner or a class 1 medical examiner is very important, because they would guide you through this entire process, and they would be able to tell you which are the tests that you're supposed to do, where are you supposed to do the tests, And they would give you information about pre-test, what are the things that you're supposed to do, for which tests you require to be fasting, which tests you don't require to be fasting. Then they interpret these results to see if there are any conditions that could be temporarily unfit. They give you guidance as to how to go about correcting these issues. Documentation, that is again a very important thing that class 2 medical examiners do, to ensure that all your documents are put in the EGCA. And so therefore, for all these steps, proper medical guidance is definitely required.
Ma'am, can you give us one key medical advice for DGCA students?
Well, the key advice would be to look after your health, prioritize your health, because health is wealth, and your health today would determine your entire flying career and whether you stay fit throughout. See, my advice would be to do your medical tests early, to schedule your class 2 examinations early, so that whatever issues are there can be addressed, and you can remain stress-free later on. So, yeah.
Ma'am, one last question for you. So, any closing message for students, parents, and for FMS Aviation?
Well, aviation is an amazing sector, and this is a sector where your dreams meet discipline. So I would suggest that for students, of course, you have to definitely look after your health. If you decide to embark on this journey, make sure that you schedule your class 2 medicals earlier. And moreover, there are various institutes, and I'm sure I can vouch for your institute, FMS, which has amazing infrastructure, which is dedicated instructors, and there is conceptual clearing. I think that's a wonderful place to start their career. But now these children are giving their 12th examinations, and I want to really wish them well, and I hope they come out with flying colors. And the message is that if you do decide to step into this world of aviation, which is an amazing, amazing experience, we are there to help you. I, as a class 2 medical examiner, and of course FMS as your first institute that will handhold you, guide you through this entire journey, and make sure that you do have a successful career. And for the parents, I would like to really thank them for their encouragement. They have stood by their children, they have had trust in their children, and I'm sure that it is definitely going to pay dividends at the end. And of course, last but not least, I would like to say that you need to fly safe and be healthy. Those probably would be my last advice to everybody.
Ma'am, if anyone wants to reach out to you for class 2 medical, how can we do that?
Well, I am based in Gandhinagar, and my name is there on the DGCA empaneled list for class 2 medical examiners. My phone number is there, my email address is there. So anytime somebody wants to get in touch with me, most welcome to give me a call or text me, and I will definitely get back to them and guide them step by step throughout. And also, probably if you have students who join FMS, my contact details are already there with FMS, and I'm sure they would do the needful in trying to connect you to me.
Thank you, ma'am.